Mr. Wilkinson's going to lead us in invocation.
Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. Father, we thank you for your guidance. And Father, we pray for just wisdom. Father, we pray for your guidance in these deliberations. Father, we ask you just bless our country right now. Heal hearts, mend minds, bring us all closer together, O Lord. Lord, just continue to make us men and women that you've called for us to be, standing firm in your word, never wavering. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
And Mr. Hollinger lead us in the pledge, and Mrs. Coley has got the Texas pledge.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Following the Pledge of Allegiance for the state flag. I pledge
Honor
the
allegiance
Texas
flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thank you. A quorum is present, and our meeting is being recorded. And members of the public may access the meeting as follows in our YouTube link we got here. And then item number 2, opportunity for members of the public to suggest the addition of topics for discussion or to address topics of interest with presentation limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone who would wish to address the board? Okay, I see none. Item number 3, Chancellor's update.
Okay. Central Texas College was selected to participate in the inaugural Minding College Minds Post-Secondary Mental Health Learning Community. This is a work being conducted with Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute in partnership with the Texas Success Center, which you all know is an arm of the Texas Association of Community Colleges. And so it's an opportunity to strategically prioritize and enhance existing efforts to support mental health and well-being for all of our students. And with us here today is Ms. Nadia Villanova. She is the lead representing Central Texas College. So I'm going to ask her to come forward and say a few words.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nadia Filimonova. I'm the Director of Wellness and Counseling Services, and I'm honored to be here to discuss this incredible opportunity. I'm thrilled to announce that Central Texas College has been selected to participate in Minding College Minds Post-Secondary Mental Health Learning Community. This project is generously supported by the Greater Texas Foundation, Texas Pioneer Foundation, and Trellis Foundation, and led by the Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute in partnership with the Texas Success Center. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our Chancellor, to Dr. Carter, for her unvarying support and commitment, and her backing is instrumental in making our participation possible and ensuring the well-being of our college community. This groundbreaking initiative aims to support the mental health and well-being of all community college students, faculty, and staff across Texas, enhancing the belonging and wellness component of the Talent Strong Texas Pathway strategies.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, please ask me.
Thank you.
I have a little bit more.
Okay.
As a participant, sorry.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine.
As a participant, I will collaborate with a cross-disciplinary implementation team from our college to develop and implement effective campus-wide mental health strategies following the Meadows Institute Minding College Minds framework. This includes universal support, therapeutic support, and crisis support.
Thank you, Ms. Villanova. Go ahead.
I have a question. How will the students access you or the program? How does that work?
They will not necessarily access this program, but it will be available. It will be always available. The benefits that we get from this program,
Okay.
the strategies that we implement after participating in this program will be accessible for students because we have this framework that we will be working with, which is universal support, will help us to establish mental health awareness on campus. The therapeutic support will give us strategies to help them when they're in help, in more needs. And the crisis interventions, we will have a policies and procedures for them implemented. So they will have access and benefit from this.
So it will be teaching, it will educate the professionals that are already doing this job.
Yes, absolutely. Mhm.
How many counselors do you have currently?
We have 2 counselors on board, professional counselors license, and we have a team of 2 people, which includes Ron Porter. He is a licensed counselor here on campus, and me. I'm a director of the Wellness and Counseling Services. So we have 2 people, and we have office assistants.
Okay.
But we also have a big team, which is risk management. We collaborate with, and we're also part of the student success department. So we are part of a big team.
And I would like to point out, Nadia serves and Ron serve not only the students here, but they serve all of our students worldwide. So our students can call in to receive services from that office. And so we're pretty proud of that.
Yes, we have a telehealth embedded in our services. They can always reach out to us and request online appointments.
Thank you for what you did.
Thank you.
Next item, Greater Killeen Chamber of Commerce Third Thursday Mixer this Thursday, July 18th. Central Texas College, along with Texas A&M Central, we're co-hosting the Mixer this Thursday. It begins at 5:30 in the planetarium with a 30-minute social, and then we'll start at 6 o'clock for the actual event itself. So if you have time to stop by, please do. And that concludes my update, sir.
Thank you. Agenda item number 4, second reporting period, Title IX report by Mr. Murphy.
Good afternoon, Chancellor, Chairman, board members. I'm here to give the second reporting period, Title IX report for Central Texas College, covering the period from January 1st, 2024 to May 31st, 2024. During this time period, we had a total of 4 reports. Of those reports, none met the criteria for Title IX or the scope for Title IX is dictated in the preamble. So those cases were either handled by HR or they were referred over to student success for code of conduct violations. Any questions?
And then agenda item number 5, 2024 Title IX regulation overview.
All right. So some of you may be aware that on April 19th, the Department of Education released their 2024 Title IX regulations for all schools that are public schools that are receiving federal funding. So I'm here this afternoon to give you an overview briefing on those regulations that came forward. So Title IX, for those that may not know or those that know, Title IX is a program that was enacted in 1972 by the Department of Education for the civil rights of students so that they could, in a nutshell, attend school without fear of harassment, sex-based discrimination, or any other type of discrimination. Title IX has 3 pillars. One is religious accommodations, sex-based discrimination, and then the third one is pregnancy and parenting. The preamble for Title IX, which we're going to focus on today, which is pregnancy and parenting and sex-based discrimination, states that no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal. So as I said, the federal government released their updated regulation for Title IX. This updated regulation takes effect on August 1st of 2024. With this new policy, it's not retroactive, meaning that any case that happened prior to August 1st of 2024, we would have to apply the 2020 regulations to that case, even if it came in on September 1st. For incidents happening August 1st going forward, we would use the new 2024 regulation going forward if it is implemented. And I will get into that in a few minutes. On slide 4, these are the training requirements. So under the current training, we can publish it online, and then students and employees have access to go online. Under the 2024 regulation, we have an obligation to make sure everyone is trained annually. It's more than just posting it, making it available. We have to develop a mechanism for ensuring that employees and students receive this training annually. So under the current policy, we would have until January 31st of 2025 to get 100% of our employees and students trained on this new regulation. Another change for this regulation is reporting requirements. State law already requires that all employees, except for confidential employees, are mandatory reporters. But now federal law goes into this as well, as you see on slide 5. So our confidential employees, which includes Ms. Philomenova, they are not, if a student or employee comes and notify them of a Title IX incident, they're not required to notify me. The only thing they're required to do is to provide that student my information on how to contact me 24 hours a day. All other employees, they are required to both notify me as well as provide my contact information to those students or employees.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I thought she was required because of her license, and by law, she has to report any
She's
violations.
a confidential employee. No.
Was that in the 2020 version where the mandatory
For federal and state, yes.
Yes.
So that's also includes medical doctors, clergy as well. They're not required to report under federal and state law. Any additional questions? The second part of the change is student pregnancy and parenting. Under this, if a student comes to an employee and notifies them that they are pregnant, they are to give the student my information so that they can reach out to me if they need to file a grievance. One other thing that we're going to do is we're also going to provide them with Dr. Shank's information in DSS so that they can get their support measures for being pregnant or parenting. We'll go into the support measures here in a few minutes. But this here is we have to make voluntary access for these students. They can take voluntary leave if they need to and return back to their course at the same place that they left. As well as we have to provide lactation space and time for those students under this new regulation. For employees, it's pretty much similar to the same thing. They still accrue seniority at the same rate they normally would have if they needed to take leave. We also have to provide them with lactation space as well as time to perform those functions. So a few minutes ago, I talked about if implemented. There are several legal challenges out there that come with this new regulation. It is being sued by many states. Texas is one of those. As of last Thursday, a federal judge in Amarillo placed an injunction which bars Texas from having to take part in implementing the new 2024 regulation until some changes are made. So where does that put us at? We're in a limbo area. We are going ahead moving forward with preparing our policy in the event that we do get told, hey, you need to implement this on August 1st, and then we will be ready for it when that comes out. Any questions? It's quick and in a nutshell. Thank you.
Agenda item number 6.
Thank you,
Saxe,
Mr. Murphy.
say again?
I was saying thank you,
Oh.
Mr. Murphy.
Saxe Board Self-Evaluation, Dr. Garrett.
Well, good afternoon again. Let's see, it's my slide there. Uh-oh. My slides aren't there. You know, I had slides.
I didn't have it.
No? Oh, okay. Well, I don't know what happened to them. I'll just wing it then. You've got a packet that where you were handed out that he provides for the board self-evaluation. As you know, this is a SACS requirement. Every year we have to do this. And I'm happy to say that the work we have done over the past 6 or 7 years of doing this has led us to, knock on wood, no recommendations on 4.2G, where you had to comply with developing your assessment plan, your assessment of continued improvement. So in your packet, again, is the instrument that will survey you on this board self-evaluation. But there's also the document in there that indicates your continuous improvement that you picked out. You decided that you were going to work on back in October. So if you have any updates to that, any additional information, any supporting information that you can add to that document, I will add that to the information for, it won't be for this SACS because I've already reviewed it, but it'll be for the future ones. And we'll just continue this. Then after I receive all of your instruments, hopefully by the next workshop, no need to rush for next week unless you want to give it to me next week. I won't be here, I'll be at SACS, but unless you want to turn it in, but the following workshop, that's fine. I'll compile the information and we'll have another meeting to look at the continuous improvement process again for the board. Any questions?
Just want to say thank you, Dr. Garrett, for the hard work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Agenda item number 7, rescind board approved 5-year tuition increase of May 24, 2022. Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, board. Next week, I'll be requesting the vote to rescind the May 24th, 2022 board approved 5-year tuition. If you'll recall, April 23rd, 2024, we increased our tuition rates for in-district and out-of-district. The May 24, 22, it continues on, the tuition rates. So it actually was to go from FY23 all the way to FY28. As a result, as a matter of process, we need to rescind that, and I would be requesting the board to take a vote for that next week.
Are you going to put together a revised one for the next 5 years?
No, sir. As of right now, and I kind of laid that out at the bottom, which is that we're not looking to do a revised schedule. So the current tuition rate will remain consistent moving forward, which would mean that at the time and as a discussion, there's no escalation after what we did in April.
Good.
If we were not to change that tuition rate will revert back and fall and create a decline in our tuition rate. And so that's why. So no, we would not be putting forth another 5-year escalation.
But if we need to, we can always.
Yes, and that's at the discretion of the board. And so if we wanted to move forward and increase, based on context, based on the current circumstances, the board has that power and authority to. So.
Yes.
Any questions? Questions? No. All right, and then agenda item number 8, Vision Point.
Yes, sir. Thank you again. So next week, I'll be seeking to exercise option year 1 of the Vision Point marketing services contract for advertising. And so just a bit of background, if you'll recall, we performed an RFP for this and the board approved it on July 5th of 2023. As of now, what has been accomplished is they've got a multi-tier process as they're onboarding, trying to identify how the college is, its culture, the markets, so on. And so just to kind of share with you what's been done, there's a research and discovery process, and under that are a litany of items such as discovery questionnaire, an analytics audit, target marketing analysis. Then that moved to another phase, which was marketing, media, and planning. From there, there's discussions on the type of media that we're looking for, smart spin, channel briefs, media calendar. I'll be honest, I don't know every one of those definitions for every item, but these are far smoke than I am. But the idea behind the marketing, media planning is trying to maximize our dollars, making sure the impact to the person that we're trying to market to is efficient. Then from there is the big idea campaign development. And so they sat down with administration and a number of different administrators to kind of discuss what we're looking for idea-wise for our campaign process. So it started with looking at big ideas for that, then visual exploration. They then had various meetings with different stakeholders to try to continue to refine that until we come to the final finalization of a concept. And so presently the concept is welcome to what's next. And so the idea of speaking to our students about what is the next step, what is the pursuit in your life, and how CTC can help you accomplish that. And so we've actually already got a billboard up on I-14 if you're heading east, and it's right across from the Ford dealership is how I've kind of labeled it. So right across from Ford, if you're heading east, you'll see that billboard on I-14. If you continue on I-14 over by the driving range in Nolanville, we have that billboard. You've seen it, it's faded. We've actually going to be updating that, and we'll be putting one of our new billboards that says what's next. And so what they've done is taking various photos of some of our career technical areas and kind of reintegrated some of those photos as to how we're going to be emphasizing that new campaign. And so I'm happy to answer any questions.
When is the official kickoff of the campaign?
And so it's actually kind of initiated right now,
Right.
this first step of it.
I know the first phase, but what do we look at? Because what I'm asking, the question I'm asking is that once implemented, the 4 phases, what is our estimated rate of return, or what are we estimating on increase in?
So great question, actually. So right now, they've implemented the analytics component.
Mhm.
And so we're actually going to be receiving some training on the analytics component of it. And with us just slowly starting to kick off everything, it's going to take us some time to build up some of that data. I don't think it would take too long because with social media, it's kind of a quick return on the information piece of it. But we actually have the capacity to evaluate a dashboard now, which is something that we've never had before. And so we should be able to see now where the traffic's going, how it's being evaluated and received. It even goes a step beyond that, and we can see now where potential, sorry, I was going to say sales calls, but potential recruits have been brought into the process, and we can see whether they've continued on or not. And we're working, I believe, with the enrollment registration, or with the recruitment side and admissions, to refine that process so that we can attempt to track them the entire way and hopefully bring them to the point where they actually register with college.
Through the sales funnel.
Yes, sir. Yeah. No, exactly.
On that billboard out in Nolanville,
Yes, sir.
is that going eastbound? Or is
Yes.
It is?
Yes, sir. Eastbound.
So if you don't mind me asking,
No,
I mean,
please.
you can get back to those people too, but why would we put that going eastbound toward Belton? Because that's at the far fringe of our taxing entity, because Nolanville, that's KISD. Why not somewhere like down Clear Creek, over by Shoemaker? They just built a brand new billboard out there. And then there's another one over by the VMB and W.S. Young. There's a billboard over there. But that's where a lot of students, because they come from Killeen High School and Shoemaker High School, those are some really big schools out there. And that's how it's a branding campaign. It's not advertising.
Yes.
That's all billboards are for branding. But it encompasses them to start thinking to see CTC. It takes a minimum of 7 times to see something to start building that muscle memory in someone's head about for branding, for advertising and stuff. But that'd be some good locations to look at.
Yes, sir. So we'll take any recommendations, but some of those actually that we actually had evaluated, but some of them are locked up via contract already. So it's a competitive market in getting some of those. The one that's actually off I-14 across from the Ford, the marketing company actually evaluated that, and we identified it as obviously a high traffic area within the city limits.
Yeah.
The one that's out in Millville is actually one that we've had for a period of time. We still consider it of great value because our students, whether it's understood, they're commuting. And so it's not just our high school students, but it's also those that are commuting to and from the Belton and Temple area, whether they're flocking there because of the work that they do in the medical field or any other arena. So we're trying to capture in all places, but no, you're correct. We're actually looking with some of our Perkins dollars to establish another one, and they're attempting to identify locations. So yes.
Yeah, I'm always looking.
No, and
For my business.
we'll take
wait a
it.
minute. CTC, yeah, okay.
We'll take any advice we can get. Yes, sir.
Question. Now that you got my thinking cap on as well, right? Are there advertising spots on the local high school marquees for their sporting complexes?
So as of right now, I'm not sure if we've gone down to that local level, but that's something that we can examine actually is marquees.
Because that's like your pool of students and the money that pays for the students.
A lot of those on the marquees at the schools, corporations have purchased spots on them in advance. They help
Yes.
to get that marquee there. I don't know how much success you'll have with for KISD of getting an opportunity for us to splash, but it's worth asking. But around the marquee, those are lots of money is paid way in advance before that marquee goes up.
I mean, at the very least, we'll look into it, give it the old
Yeah.
college try. But no, we do know that many things are tied up, usually a whole fiscal year in advance, in some cases, multiple years, but.
Yeah, there's the static picture that are surrounding, and then some of these marquees have ongoing film game or whatever, and spots for advertisement interspersed in the game. So it could be that if you have a 10-second or 15-second spot, that might be something that could be affordable. I know a few years ago when I was being approached to buy a big corner of a billboard, at one of the local schools, it was about $5,000. So it could be high dollar.
Yes, sir.
But, a 10 to 15-second spot between plays or what have you might not be that much.
And one of the areas that, and I know I kind of just stressed the billboards, but one of the areas of emphasis is obviously social media. We're trying to make it now where you're getting more of a tailored custom message based on your searches. And so that is another area of space, but no, exactly to the high schools, to some of the traffic areas around the high schools, we definitely want to look at that.
Are you participating in ad buys on social media?
As far as I understand, that's being evaluated. Because before we used to do ad buys, but I don't know that the ROI was there, and so that's what some of the analytics is looking to drive us. And so it's not just simply we're going to dive into something and just continue it. There's supposed to be an evaluation with our marketing partner.
Buck, yep.
Yes, sir, to understand that we're maximizing the dollar. And that was one of the things that was interesting to us is that they stipulated to us that for every dollar we should get like a $6 return. And so in the leverage of the media. So.
Yeah.
And you should be able to, even when students have negative things to say about us, there should be a ping to let you know, or whoever the administrator is, know when those kind of comments are made online. And if it's negative or positive, but definitely negative, it's something we'll have an opportunity to address. When I was in another life, was part of my life. And so, we could respond to that person, or maybe they were lost in the shuffle and we can help guide them.
And I know historically, Ms. Merlot and Ms. Flores, and when those things would come, but you're correct, we need probably a much quicker way to track that. We were usually responsive. I remember Ms. Merlot reaching out to me about something in the bookstore. And so we have generally tried to identify, but we're hoping with this technology, we can monitor it even quicker.
Great choice.
In the past, as I recall, this includes both the buying of the media and the production. What is the split roughly?
So I don't, off the top of my head, know what the split is, but what I can say is the production is far more cost effective because generally before we were doing production for TV, and that would usually include the TV companies that we're working with. In some cases, we were able to provide that B-roll. In other cases, they would work with us to develop it, and that was very expensive. With social media, it's less of the video footage that we are able to create in-house most of the time, and that we're able to provide. And because we're not, how do I say it? We're not trying to create an illusion. We're trying to show you what it is to be a CTC student. So for that reason, we're really being more specific about, this is what you do when you're a welding student here at CTC. This is what it means when you're an English student at CTC. So some of the footage that we're using is actually our students who have signed releases. And so that is, that is generally the footage that we're attempting to use and that we actually are using currently. And so for that, our costs will decrease as a result of that.
Any others? And you have item number 9, budget update.
Yes, sir. So I'm just going to kind of dive into what we're looking at for fiscal year 24-25, and this is a forecast, probably the most recent forecast. But as of now, for FY 24-25, we're showing that we're likely going to have, we're going to require $6.6 million to be transferred from reserves to balance the budget. Please understand, this is a very conservative budget. Mr. Barton and the team worked very hard to make sure that we accounted for everything and the kitchen sink. There's 4 points that I would like to make prior to jumping into some of these things that have affected us negatively. So number one, the projected amount that's required for reserves has actually decreased by over $2.1 million. Last year, we needed roughly 8.8 from reserves. Capital projects have historically always been pulled from reserves, and that kind of makes logical sense, right? If we're investing into the institution, we're likely going to pull from reserves. And so capital projects are something that are lumped in within that 6.6 million. Capital projects actually account for 4.5 million of that total. Okay? So that's something that's been consistent year to year. This forecast does not include the new tax rates. And so it simply holds tax revenue flat, right? So even if we consider that any exponential growth or any growth, sorry, not exponential, but any growth that's happened, we're not accounting for that, Mr. Barton. We just held the revenue flat, and that's because we haven't gotten the rules yet. And so, and then finally, the forecast only holds true for every dollar spent. Generally speaking, we don't usually spend every dollar. And so this can, perform, can be better as we progress. So what are some of the items that are contributing to our revenue loss? We've have over 1.7 million decline in revenue loss, with 273,000 that due to loss in state appropriations, HB8. So if you recall Mr. Harmson explaining that we are going to lose approximately 273,000 in state appropriations. And why is that? Well, the way it works now with HB8, is you all probably have been very well informed, is that it's based off of an average. So it's somewhat of a moving target. And so for that reason, as of right now, that's what the projection is. Or it's not the projection, actually. This is what it is. We're going to lose 273,000. The other $1.5 million loss comes in the form of entering FAST. So FAST, if you recall, is the dual credit component, whereby if you enter, you have to operate at the rate that the state sets, or the coordinating board. Well, we're seeing roughly a 50% decline in our tuition rate. And so for that reason, as of right now, that's forecasted to be roughly a $1.5 million loss in revenue. And I'm happy to answer questions as I go. I brought my water just in case I get try. As far as expenses, this coming fiscal year, we're approximating $1.4 million in ADA projects as a result of the DOJ review. That will fall off. We have a certain timeline that we have to meet, and so those projects should be complete hopefully by the end of this calendar year, if not within the next fiscal year. We are still working through the exemptions with the DOJ. We just recently submitted information that they needed from us, and so hopefully we'll hear soon as to whether they're agreeable to our exemption. As they let us know, I think they went on vacation, so hopefully we'll hear from them in a relative time frame. But they are working with us, and I think that's a very good sign, is that they have been willing to work for this. They've been very receptive to what we're explaining. They appreciate where we're at as far as our percentage-wise on the completion of work. And so I think that's working in our favor. And then finally, we have a 2.5% increase to the pay scales, which is equating to a cost of $1 million. And what I just want to say to that is this is very much needed to combat the college's turnover rate. As of right now, it's 36%. And what I can tell you, and this was several years before I came to the college, 28% was considered bad. 30% was considered detrimental to your operation. And if we're at 36%, the issue that we're facing right now is that we're in a constant cycle of recruit, train, and it makes it difficult to gain traction. And so for that reason, the philosophical decision was made that, we need to invest in our people. We can build buildings, we can stand up programs, but if I do not have the faculty or the staff to run them, then we will not be able to move forward. And I've been in business long enough to know that if you're not taking your folks on the front line who are providing the product or the service to a person, your service will wane. And we've had some conversations, Mr. Pierce, about how hard it is sometimes to keep good talent. I know it's more difficult in the construction trades. It's a very difficult thing, but what we've seen lately is that our talent is being poached. They're flocking to A&M, and whenever we have somebody do something really great, all of a sudden it's, how are you doing? Have you ever thought about coming here? And we pay more. And so for that reason, a decision was made that we really need to prioritize our people, invest in our folks, and at the same time, we've not really kept up with the rate of inflation. And so this is trying to first step to an attempt to cure that. So one other thing I'm just going to share, and then if there's questions, is that our college revenue comes from three main buckets, as I think everyone here is aware. Excuse me. And that is taxes, tuition, and state appropriations. So the first two, taxes, we've had growth, but it's been slow growth. And so to keep up with inflation, one of the things that's been discussed, I think, by the board and that we're evaluating is looking at going to the voter approval rate. And I think Dr. Carter was able to provide a communication that showed what that difference looks like if we're to evaluate moving to the voter approval rate. The second item would be tuition. Tuition, right, is directly affected by enrollments. And so for that very nature, the revenue that we've raised via tuition has been in steady decline. And that's like no fault to anyone. I don't think anybody saw COVID and then how consumerism patterns changed after COVID. And so as of now, our current enrollments, we're evaluating them. They're doing better. They're holding flat. And so in the fall, we were just short of last year. The spring, we were higher than last year. The summer one, we were higher than last year. As summer two, as of right now, we're almost neck and neck with summer two of last year. So our trajectory is kind of flattened out, and we're starting to go in the other direction. Something to know about the first two. One of the things that HB8, and I've heard constantly and listening to the different information sessions that they put out, is the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, when they put out HB8, they expect for the schools to leverage and adjust to cover any shortfalls using tuitions and taxes, or as they call it, your local share. And so that has been a common theme. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's the calculation that they made, which was that, you should be hitting on all these outcome performance. Well, the thing that with the performance numbers is that it's kind of delayed revenue. And why is that? Because we don't see that until student completes. We don't see that so they achieve their objective. That can be 1 year, 2 years, or longer in some cases, because as Dr. Garrett has explained to me, it takes in some cases multiple years for a student to finish a 2-year degree. So we don't see that for some portion of time. And so really our appropriations are very important to us. Well, if our appropriations in decline because they're changing the calculations and how they are pursuing it, and that has actually already happened, as they keep saying, well, if you see an issue or decline, yes, work on your performance. However, you should be able to adjust for that via your local share, meaning increasing your tuition or increasing your tax rate. And so I just wanted to share that as we understand the complexity of what we're dealing with. And then finally, state appropriations. These have been in decline year over year. And as I explained earlier, we expect to see a decline in appropriations of 273,000. I share this because these are the three mechanisms which we have. In the past, we had our revenue was a little bit more diversified simply because we had our military contracts. Those contracts were specifically contracted for a specific dollar amount. They were somewhat insulated. So if enrollments dropped somewhere else, or even if there was a change in TA with the military, our contracts could weather that storm. Well, since the decline in our military contracts because of how it's changed the industry, we're not as shielded anymore. We don't have that diversification. And Mr. Harmson actually had showed you a pie graph that showed our diversification. And at one point, it was a little bit more proportionate, and now it's relatively disproportionate in that we're now heavy on enrollments, we're heavy on our taxes, and we're heavy on our appropriations, right? The auxiliary shrank, and those contracts shrank. And so moving forward, we are looking to see, how do we stand up other revenue lines, but within the theme of what it means to be an institution of higher education. So we are looking at that. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. I have a question. I got a couple of things to address. Number one, Chancellor sent each one of the board members a missile this last week. And the calculations for the budget are based on no new revenue tax rate as opposed to the voter approved tax rate. And I sent an email to each one of the board members asking them to think about this. And I'm not proposing to raise taxes, believe me. But on the other side of the coin, I don't see any valid reason why we would leave $1.3 million on the table. If we use the voter approved tax rate, that would give us a little bit more flexibility in addressing some of the issues that you brought up. So from the college standpoint, I'd like to understand how my colleagues feel about this.
I was not a recipient of your email. I didn't get it. But as far as whether we are interested in raising it to that level, it's definitely something we need to look at. We need to consider.
What I can share with you on.
Well, I'm going to ask my colleagues,
Yes,
if
sir.
you don't mind. I like to hear what everybody has to say.
Yes, sir.
Well, we really can't be discussing
Yes, we can. This is a discussion. This is a workshop.
because it'd be advertising the way we would like to vote.
No, we're not. We're discussing the issue. The issue is, should we consider in the budget proposal? Should we
But
consider that?
that would be from what comes back from the tax assessor in Bell County and in Coryell County of what that would look like in terms of property taxes, at what level y'all would be recommending to us, right?
It's already been out there, sir. He's already made the recommendation in the budget. The budget proposal is to use the no new tax rate.
But there was nothing in that. We got an email from Dr. Carter, but nothing from the budget office.
He just said it.
No, well, it's not in paper. I mean, we
So,
have
so
to
if I
have.
can simply clarify, what I stated is that when we were doing the forecast for the budget, it was difficult for us to anticipate what that revenue growth would be from the property taxes.
Right.
So what we did is we just held it flat. We made it consistent
At
from
the
what
no
last
new
year.
revenue. At the no new revenue.
And what I'm saying is, let's don't lock ourselves down here. Let's look at the bigger picture. Does anybody disagree with that?
I will say, I think that a specific conversation about tax rates should be an agenda item,
Right.
not a full conversation in an agenda item that was a budget update. And to get almost consensus from the group of what they
Not-
feel about a tax rate when it's not an agenda item.
Well, all I'm saying
I'm
is
just cautioning you.
what was presented to us was, this is what we're going to do. And what I'm asking is to go back and review that. So when we come to vote, we have an option to vote yes or no. We're not voting today, but we have to discuss the issue. That's what workshops are for.
Yes, I agree. But I guess what I'm saying is to go around and ask about increasing tax rates is one
No,
thing.
no,
Asking
no,
for
no,
him to
no,
look
no,
at a
no,
different
no,
tax
no,
rate is
not an
another.
increase in the tax rate, using a different method to calculate. The two calculations are the voter approved rate or the no revenue rate. That's the two calculations.
So you're asking
But-
the group if they want to see both calculations?
Yes.
That's a different question. And I think that's okay.
But that would be presented to us anyway next month, correct?
No, not necessarily. What the college is recommending, according to the chancellor, is a no revenue rate, no new revenue rate.
Because what should be, when next month, when you bring it'll be next month when you bring the budget up to us, right? It'll be no new revenue, voter approval, and then, they changed the terms, but the one where the actual, voters have to approve.
Yes, so
Right.
anything that goes above the voter approval rate,
Right.
that has to go to.
Right, and then
would you-
y'all would show us all three options.
Can I make a clarification? I am not recommending the no new revenue rate. The update that I provided was absolutely to help the board consider some options.
Right.
But at this time, without the actual rates provided to us by the county office, we won't know.
Correct.
However, I will say, and the point I was making is that the no new revenue rate does not help us. It does not help us. And so we need to look at other options. We need to have that conversation. Obviously, without the information, today is not the day, but those numbers will be presented when we receive them from the county. So I just wanted to clarify that.
You have automatically provided us all three options, or is that a part of the process for you guys?
We'll get the final values and the values on the 25th, and then she will do the calculate the rates for us. And then once we.
Doug, can you step over to the microphone?
Can't hear you, Doug.
Be around the 25th through the end of the month, and then we'll calculate the no new, the voter approved, and we'll give those values to you and show you what the difference is.
Is that I've slept since you did it before. Is that the usual process that you present all three?
So usually on the sheet, we
Yeah.
identify the rate for the voter, for the no new revenue rate and voter. As far as going over and above, I think that it comes into a conversation where what would we actually be setting it, because we wouldn't know exactly. What
Exactly.
So that gets into a whole new
Okay.
deal, if you go above the voter approved rate. It's a whole new process.
An election would
An
then be
election.
required.
Yeah. And the no new rate's gonna go down
Yes.
compared to last year.
Mhm.
Because, the values went up, so to collect that same amount, that rate's going down, which means the voter approved rate will go down from what was calculated last year also.
Any other questions,
Yes.
comments?
Got one other question. And this goes back again to the chancellor's missile that she sent out. And that was the lower wage employees, according to calculations. I think the chancellor saying if we adopted the 2.5% pay raise for everybody, the lowest rate employees we've got would be $9.66 an hour. And the question is, how many employees do we have that draw $9.66 an hour?
They draw 966.
Mhm.
And they're at
In that
943.
category A.
Well, that's good. Probably 30.
30?
Mhm. And we have the hourly pay scale, and it starts at 943, top end 15, maybe 16. So that's our very skilled laborers that make, maybe $15 an hour. So we've got a range. The challenge for us is there's many institutions now that their base rate, their lowest level position, they already pay 15. So we're way off the mark there.
Well, that was my point, and I'm glad you brought it up because I wanted somebody to put it on the table. You know, I think you need to look at it from the standpoint of we've got a pay system scale that was put out years and years ago. I've always not liked it, okay? And it's based on years of service, it's based on steps of increased pay and so forth. I'd like to see a base like $15 an hour or $12.50 an hour or something that will be competitive for these low-paying jobs. The entry-level jobs, what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about somebody walking here with a PhD, okay? We're talking about somebody off the street who just needs a job. And maybe it's a high school kid that's working in the summer and cutting grass. I don't know. But a rate that would be sufficient to attract somebody.
That's
And
music to
I
my
think
ears.
with the wrong field, I think we need to get back and put that number somewhere close to where it should be. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I just, when I read the Chancellor's Eye, I said, you're right.
What
We're
would be
not
the-
doing the right thing with our employees. We can do better than that.
If that took place, or just the basic 12 instead of the 9, how would that affect what would the cost be? That's what he's trying to get to, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
And we could provide numbers. The challenge with that, because we have this pay scale that Mr. Weaver shared, if you increase, say,
The bottom.
and only the bottom,
Yeah.
then you've got that next tier that would potentially make less than what we would consider a lower level position, somebody higher skilled. And so what our practice has been is to increase the entire scale of, say, the same percentage to get to, $12 an hour. Percentage wise, we're talking, it would be a significant percentage, and it has a significant price tag to it. So,
But we will look at it.
We can definitely.
So of the 30 people you said make $9.44 an hour, how many of them are part-time and how many are full-time?
Almost all of them would be full-time.
Okay.
Good question.
Do they make up a substantial portion of the 36% of the turnover rate?
No.
Would it be a good thing to target the people with the higher turnover rate? Would that be any sort of help to prevent them from leaving?
Sir, unfortunately, we have turnover at all levels.
But some positions or some levels have greater, this is an average, I would assume. So is it a weighted average, or how do you target that percentage?
I mean, I think in some of it, you almost have to look at it contextually because for example, the trades in facilities, I mean, it is very difficult to maintain those trades because it's just the competitiveness of it. I know for me, I have one young lady who works for us in our purchasing department, who's one of these, and she very hardworking, but got her degree and immediately moved, had an offer at A&M. And so some of that, I think it's just, as Ms. Jordan says, it's distributed across the board. I don't know how we can just average it, or I really think we would have to look at each
Overall pay scale.
We do have 3 pay scales. We have an hourly, a salaried, and then a faculty pay scale.
Mm-hmm.
So when we make changes, historically, if you say, okay, we're granting employees a 2.5% pay increase, we apply that to all 3 pay scales. But then we could do it differently.
But if we don't do something, well, we're having the same conversation year after year after year. We have been having this conversation since I've been on the board. And I have to assume that it was occurring before I arrived. And I've been on the board 7 years. Oh my God. But anyway, so you have to help us find a starting point. This has to be discussed. we cannot pay, that's not a living wage. And that was always the guidance from me when I was in somewhat similar role. We looked at what is a living wage? What can a person meet, not luxury, just how can they live off of whatever amount there is? And we just have to, you have to give us something, you have to educate us and show us what you would like, what works, and what's a dream. But we cannot, we can't continue to talk about it and do nothing. We just can't.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna skip back to my chair now.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver.
And I got one more question, and I'll shut up. Again, we're going back to take money from our reserves to make the budget balance. And they've done this, 3 years in a row now, Doug? And I understand where we're coming from. We have to do it because there's things that have to be done. We have to maintain the property. I understand that. We've got federal mandates that we can't thumb our nose at. I understand that. In the same light, we've got to take care of our people. And if we have to dig down deep into the budget and get more out of the reserves, I'm not opposed to that so far as we can stabilize and get a point where our people are not only competitive, but they're happy. I think you can get a whole lot more done with a happy soldier than an unhappy soldier. I hate to bring up that analogy, but been there, done that a few times. And I think we have to bite the bullet. We have to do something drastic this year.
Thank you.
I don't think we can pass the buck anymore. Okay?
And to add on to that is a good way to end all that topic of conversation and do what we need to do is to get in the community, get into schools, get on to Fort Cavazos, and get out there and get those students to come here instead of going to other institutions. And the more students we get into this college, the more tuition we collect, and it helps our bottom line a lot easier.
Absolutely. Everyone's an
I don't want them to go to
ambassador.
Temple College. I don't want them to go to MCC.
That's
I want them to come here. The
We're
school
all
I saw when I was a private in the Army. Man, in Germany. Man, yeah.
I just want to make a comment too. Those individuals that had left or stayed, they're some of our biggest marketing people. They tell others what we're like to work with and for. And they have students that they influence that way also. So that's why it's so important to me, because we'll always, all of us are going to always say positive things about CTC. That's just what we're going to do. Or we wouldn't be here if we didn't believe in that. But our employees that leave tell their families, their friends, so on and so forth, our good, bad, and ugly. And so think of them also as a marketing rep, because they really are.
So,
So,
on the marketing side, that's actually something that we've been toying with Ms. Flores and I, and I apologize because we hadn't had a chance to talk with Dr. Carter and the team, but we were looking at bringing a recommendation to potentially look at testimonials. And so testimonials from our students, our graduates, testimonials from our employees who are former graduates. And so Ms. Flores is a former graduate, so kind of born out through that idea, and it's to tell our story. And so, yes, ma'am, we think there's an opportunity there to seize.
It's funny you mentioned that because we did that on my company Facebook page this morning. We took a testimonial from a customer comment, we put it on a Canvas slide, and posted it on our Facebook site so people could see, could get our business out there in front of everyone, right? Good recommendation.
And that's
good.
how, in a former life, we were able to grow a business that I was in was simply with, we could show the student what it would like to have a luxurious living in our complexes. So, yes, sir.
With the percentage being 36%, are we really looking at our exit surveys thoroughly to make sure and addressing anything that may be precipitating causes for this?
The recurring theme from employees is the compensation. The work environment. We've got a real strong, great group of folks, great group of leaders. And just the recurring theme is the compensation. We had 2 people today that gave notice that shared their team CTC, but they had to leave because of the pay. And they didn't want to, they liked their job, but it got to the point they needed to make that change. So I firmly believe if we can improve our compensation, our retention will increase, and then our turnover, we won't see that 36%.
And even some of the knowledge gap that we're losing, we have folks that are still work capable and want to, but they're making the decision to retire because they don't see the reason to stay on some more years. They're not going to see an ROI as well. So that also has, I think, been some of the impetus for the turnover as well.
Thank you. Agenda item number 10, recommend any topics for upcoming agenda items or announcements. Ms. Coley?
Definitely continue our conversation about the compensation. And I would just say also that I don't have an expectation that it's going to show up at the next board meeting. I have an expectation that the information we see is going to be accurate. And when we say 30, it's affecting 36 people. I don't want there to be 37. I want there to be 36.
Eric, nothing further. I think we just pretty well covered what needs to be on the agenda.
I don't have anything.
Second, Mr. Hollinger's comment.
Thank you.
All right. Our next regular, did you have anything?
No, just a reminder that I will be at SACS with Dr. Garrett next week. It's our decennial reaffirmation, so I need to be present. So I will miss you all next week.
And our next regular board meeting will be next Tuesday without Dr. Carter, on July 23rd at 1 p.m. I'm sorry. And then that's for our trustee meeting, and our next board workshop will be Tuesday, August 20th at 1 p.m. And that's all.
Thank you.
That's all, folks.